Hi
Oh,
Manish.
hi. What's up?
Fine man. Yeah, I just want to buy a phone. My budget is 15,000.
Oh, what features you want?
I just want good camera, good
Okay.
storage capacity,
Okay.
then touchscreen hona chahiye,
Okay.
then it should be smart dual, then...
Hang on. It's just 15,000, yaar. You have to compromise. It's just a budget phone.
8 megapixel. The picture is pretty good, right?
Mine is 16 megapixels, more megapixels, better picture quality.
Man, we should add one remote to replace all this junk.
Hey, what's up? You're buying the iPhone 5s? I would suggest you to wait a few months and buy the iPhone 6 because iPhone 5s is anyways going to be obsolete soon. Yeah, iPhone 6 is much better than the iPhone 5s.
We live in an incredible world where new gadgets, technology and devices come to us at the speed of light. But it's also a very complex world because the options, too many. That changes today. We've got the best experts in the country to tell you the best gadget to buy in its category. This is Unboxed, the ultimate tech buying guide.
Please stand by.
Welcome to Unboxed, where we have our experts and of course we also have Vikram Chandra. So, Mr. Chandra.
What do you mean also have, am I not part of the experts?
You're not in the experts field, you're the analytical techie, right?
Yeah, actually I'm right now more interested in that. Because this is, I think, the first tech show that I have seen, which is actually being filmed by a robo-copter. Hi guys, hi up there. And we are at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. We've got a robo-copter in here.
Let me first get in expert number one.
The man with two first names is an engineer by degree and a techie at heart. He found his true calling in his final year of college when he bid farewell to engineering and discovered the world of blogging. Today, he throws his weight as a successful tech blogger. Usually found wearing bright neon Angry Bird t-shirts, we were shocked to find him all dressed up to hit our red hot seat. Meet Clinton Jeff, Executive Editor, UnleashThePhones.com.
Clinton is with us and he is one of the authorities, iconic in the mobile field, and we have a great amount of questions for you. But let me first answer the big question. A tech show, the ultimate buying guide here at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. Let me tell you why. What is tech all about today? About buying the number one thing. The best in the field compete, but only one can get the gold medal. Sports, tech, all the same. Now, the first thing is, you're here. Are we going to get you to come here every week or not?
There are elections that are rolling, governments to be sworn in. I will give you moral support as often as I can, but there are elections, so I'm...
Okay, we'll be very happy to have you as many times as you can come back, but we've got to get started with the show. Big question, question number one, maybe one of the biggest questions we've been asked for the last 1 year. I have 15,000 rupees, the phone to buy.
What's the number one factor that you would look for?
I would look at value for money because I want to know that this phone can do as much as it can for that price range.
You're saying so value for money. So therefore, if you could get most of the features at a 5,000 price point, then you're saying that would inch it up in your estimation compared to something which is at 14,999.
But then with every price, there is a compromise made at some point, and the higher you go, the less compromises are made. So with a 5,000 rupee phone, you will have some compromises to deal with. With a 15,000 rupee phone, you don't have that many compromises. It's still a pretty decent price range where you can get some very, very future capable phones.
Okay, now before we get down to, you filtered it down from many phones, okay, brought it down to a last three. First, I'll get a last three from you, then go further into declaring the one winner that you think anybody should buy for 15,000 bucks.
This was tough because there are a lot of phones in that price range. I thought that the Lenovo S820 was a good phone to choose because it does do a lot of things for that price range, and that's what I was looking for. The Nokia Lumia 720 has also dropped down to about 15,000 now. It's a good sleek phone for that price range, and it gives everybody a break from Android for people who, Android isn't for everybody, and that's what Windows Phone has proved. So I think that's also a good contender to check out. And of course the Canvas 4, the Micromax Canvas 4 is also a good phone to choose in that price range because it has dropped down. Of course there are compromises with each of these phones that you have to make, but they're decent enough that will last you for at least a year and you won't have any regrets.
So what were the compromises that you think they are there? So if these are not the winner, what do you think were the things that held them back a bit?
Well, for example, with the Nokia Lumia 720, a lot of people look at Windows Phone as an advantage. Some people look at it as a compromise. With Windows Phone, you don't get as many apps as you do with Android, and that's a factor that you have to deal with. Also, Windows Phone isn't as open as Android, so you can't, for example, Bluetooth a song from somebody to another person. And for a lot of people out there, this is a huge deal. Like, they want to be able to share files that include music, for example.
The phone to buy at 15,000 rupees as a budget.
The Motorola Moto G. That is the phone to get right now. Everyone's talking about it because it was such a high profile
Motorola
launch.
Moto G.
Yeah.
Why?
Because at this price point, it is simply the best phone you can get. It runs almost stock Android. It runs a quad-core processor. Might not be a Snapdragon 800, but it's still a Snapdragon 400.
Do processors really make a difference?
Well, they do on Android. On Android, they do.
If the Motorola Moto G didn't have the brand Motorola and the hardware and specs were the same, would it win?
The problem with that question is that Motorola does have, as a brand, it does have some things attached to it. Every brand has some things attached to it.
Warm and fuzzy, yes.
Well, warm and fuzzy feelings maybe. But with the Motorola brand, you at least know, at least previously, you knew that it was a Google company. Now it's a Lenovo company, which does kind of make you wonder, if I buy this phone, will it get software updates going forward? That's a big question mark right now.
You know, everybody today can go onto the web and say, here are my last 3 phones. How do you come down to the last one? 1 or 2 quick things you can do at a store.
The one factor you should choose on, in other words.
First of all, never trust a person who's selling the phone to you. Never do. Because they want to sell that phone to you. I mean, you will see if you go to any store, whether you're buying a phone or any other product, you'll go into a store and you'll see people will directly take you towards one brand and they'll say, look, this is the phone to get. But
सबसे top selling brand है,
yeah,
बहुत अच्छा चल रहा है, service बहुत अच्छी है. Yes,
exactly.
Right. Okay.
So you have to do some research before you head in. But if you don't have access to the internet, the best thing to do is look at that phone, do a little bit of research if you can, ask around on the brand, because again, brands do have things attached to it. But also try and use the phone if you can.
All right, fantastic. We have a phone and a winner under 15,000. But now, expert number 2, who's going to reinvent the biggest myth that we've heard, the megapixel myth. Does it?
You know, we were just discussing this, that people are buying phones because they say, oh, it's got 40 megapixels. Is that a factor they should look for at all? In a camera and certainly in a phone. Why would you look at that in a phone is a moot point.
And the best part is we've taken 10 years to dispel the myth, and the myth continues. Every company still sells phones and cameras only on the megapixel.
Okay, does he go from the red hot seat to the yellow hot seat?
Yes, so we're changing colors and tone for you. So we'll be nicer to you. But Swapnil, red hot seat.
He can game with the best, spends most of his time debating his friends on all the new gadgets and devices, and yet has a heavy-duty degree in psychology. But it's photography that courses through his heart, mind and soul. He worked as a journalist for a short time, but today is the last word in the world of optics. Meet Swapnil Mathur, Director Photography, Art Photo Studios.
Megapixel myth, like I said, for 10, 12, 15 years we've been saying don't buy any device, optical device, based on the number of megapixels.
Right.
Yet the number one marketing term continues to be that. In fact, it's so strong that they've come up with new marketing terms. Megapixel, ultra pixel, super ultra pixel.
At the end of the day, I think one of the things which, let's start off by asking you is, can anybody tell the difference in a picture which is that big? Yes, when you blow it up to the size of your house, you will be able to tell 40 megapixels as opposed to 3. But in the standard picture which somebody will see on a computer or an iPad or a phone, can you tell the difference?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Good. So that's question number 1, and I think there's a related one because you can take both together. Is the megapixel a myth?
If megapixels were not important, companies like Hasselblad, Phase 1, they'd go out of business. There would be no medium format cameras, you know, that have pixel density of 80 megapixels, 50 megapixels. They wouldn't exist. But there is a need for that. The more megapixels you have, the more detail you get in an image, right? So if you want to blow it up, yes, there's also something called dynamic range. Now we're shooting out in the sun, right? But there's a lot of brightness, there's a lot of dark areas. When you want to capture all of that, along with the detail in those areas, that's where the pixels come in. That's where the size of your sensor comes in. So the megapixel, yes, the more it is, the better, but there is a catch to that. The catch is the physical size of your sensor. So you have a party for about 100 people, 110, 120. Everybody's comfortable, they're walking around, they're talking. However, if you invite 500 people, nobody's going to be comfortable. So that's kind of what happens. You're looking at sensors that are as small as a fingernail, and manufacturers are trying to pack 20, 30, 40 megapixels in there. Now what happens is none of these pixels are comfortable. They're so small, these individual pixels are so small, they can't capture light efficiently.
Take us through this whole new terminology. Now what's this bigger megapixel situation?
Essentially an ultra pixel is the size of your individual pixels on a sensor. When they become big, HTC coined it as an ultra pixel. Right. It's bigger than normal.
And yet the HTC One didn't have great image quality. So was that one of the things where they banded it so much yet it didn't have great quality? What was the problem there?
What ended up happening was our displays became very high resolution. They out-resed the images themselves.
Question of whether the megapixels is important or not, doesn't it also depend entirely on what you're going to be seeing your pictures on? Because if you're seeing it on a computer, or on Facebook or on your device or even on a high resolution iPad or whatever it is that you've got, how can you tell the difference between 20 and 40?
That's where dynamic range comes in. The ability of a sensor to differentiate between the dark parts and the light parts, right? So the more of this range that a camera can capture depends on the nature of the individual pixels. The bigger they are, the more of this information they capture. Right, so even if you've shot a 5 megapixel image and an 8 megapixel, that you tell the difference by how much of the dark areas still contain detail.
Person walks into a store.
Right.
Every box says 10, 20, 30, 21 megapixel.
Fair enough.
Okay. All of them sound the same.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of the price. How can he in the shop take a decision, this is the best camera phone he can buy? What can you do?
Okay, so normally when you walk into a store, they're very well lit. These guys are super clever. They light everything up so well that you take a photo, it'll look good. So what you need to do ideally is try and create a shadow area. Okay. Ideally, when you find some text, you create a shadow on it and you photograph that. Okay. You photograph colors under a shadow. So what you're doing is you're eliminating the extra light. You're putting the sensor through a somewhat of a rough patch, and if that image on your screen, it doesn't have grain in the shadow area, you don't see random blue and red dots, that means the camera can perform. Second thing to look out for is on the edges. The edges should not look out of focus. And then the third thing, of course, this comes down to spec, always ask for the aperture.
Most camera sensors you said are like the size of my thumbnail?
My small fingernail. You have a big finger there. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And an 80 megapixel on a professional camera, what's the size of the sensor?
That sensor is about that big.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about that big.
All right, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, all new challenges on Unboxed.